On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome inside episode 435 of the Locked On Senators podcast. I'm Ross Levitan on the outskirts of enemy territory in Winnipeg, Manitoba, alongside Brandon Pillar up in the Blue Mountains, and we are recording bright and early because I'm heading down to North Dakota today. Going to be at the next two Nodak Sens games against the University of Minnesota Duluth, who has their own Sens prospect coming back in the lineup from injury. So naturally, we thought what better time to take a look across the landscape that is Sens prospects. We'll give our top 5 Senators prospects who have never played a game in the organization yet, and then take a look back at who our top 10 Sens prospects are across the organization. Finally, we'll touch on some listener questions we got at Sens Central on Twitter. There's some good ones, so stay tuned for all that and more. This is the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day. Today is Friday, November 19th, and Pilsey made it through a full work week without Sens hockey.
I know, Ross. I did not think in mid-November doing a daily Senators podcast that we would have a prospect-filled podcast on a Friday heading into a weekend, but here we are.
Hey, there's still some good news, though, around the Senators organization, and that is that there is no new COVID cases over the past 4 days. That was reported last night on TSN's Insider Trading. Oh, TSN. I wonder where you could hear some of their best talent. Right here on Locked On Senators. If you missed either our interview with Craig Button or with Cheryl Pounder, you can go back and check that out on YouTube or wherever you download your podcast. Reminder, Locked On Senators is free and available to you wherever, and we appreciate you making us your first listen of the day. Pilsey, that's great news, though, regarding the Senators. They're set to come back Monday in Colorado. We discussed it. Hopefully they can get there and, adjust to the altitude a little bit earlier than later.
Yeah, I mean, they have their work cut out for them. Like, to go a whole week with no games, no practices, guys coming off COVID, and then to have a Western road trip where you're playing 4 games in 6 days is quite a tall task for DJ Smith and his coaching staff to try to get this team prepared. But, Ross, one interesting thing, though, is a bunch of these players that were called up due to COVID protocol, almost mixed that one up, got sent down, other than Lassie Thompson. Thompson is still here, and I think if you're a Sens fan, you got to be excited about this, because this is finally the coaches giving players who they feel like were their best players on the ice the chance to play regardless of health and roster and all that stuff. So clearly DJ is like, you know what? I think we're going to have a better chance to win with Lassie Thompson in our lineup, despite who we have healthy veteran-wise.
Let's see what the COVID list looks like. The Senators have been very quiet in terms of obviously no practices, but there's really been no availabilities. It's been a full shutdown across the organization.
We know that. Yeah.
The most information we got was from Michael Delzato on Toronto Sports Radio, of course, yesterday with his good buddies on the TSN 1050 morning show. But without Senators hockey, well, the Nodak Sens will fill the void. And not only will I be down at the Ralph seeing the game, but anybody in Canada gets to watch this one if you have TSN too. So you're going to be locked into this one tonight?
Oh, yeah. Locked in, locked out, looking out, all those things. Sens Central standouts. This is going to be our game. Like, no Sens hockey in quite a while. TSN at least kind of tipping the hat to Sens fans, being like, all right, we're going to get you some action here. So that's great. And this is going to be the first game I've watched fully of college hockey this year. Like, I've caught bits here and there, but been distracted by the Sens and Belleville and stuff. So now I'm finally going to get to dial in and watch Jake Sanderson do what he does best.
We're going to try to bring some traffic to our Instagram page. So lockedon.senators. I'm going to make sure to put up a bunch of stories tonight as I head to what Jake Brandt called the Palace on the Prairies. I like that one.
I like that a lot too. I mean, I bet in the Prairies, that's the nicest arena, honestly. Like, it might, I haven't been there. We went to Canada Life Center for the preseason, and that was nice. But yeah, yet. We do have a trip planned in January. Ross, I never in my entire life thought I would say I'm excited to go to Winnipeg in January, but damn it, I've got my flight booked. We've got our tickets for the Ralph. We're going to be going to the Sens game when they're playing Winnipeg in mid-January, so I'm fired up for that. And you get to see Luke Lohype, but we're going to get to see an offensive, outgoing defenseman in Johnny Tyconic when him and the Lancers come to town.
Johnny, Gin, and Tyconic.
We've already forgotten his name.
Oh my God. Hey, good thing they're not the Omaha Lancers of the USHL.
Oh my
We're going
God.
through an entire, if I was going to call it a scandal, I don't know what to call it, but you can go do your research on that if you're interested. But yeah, fired up to have you coming down in January, a back-to-back, the Ralph one night, in seeing the Jets and Sens the next. But tonight I'm fired up, man, because I get to see Jake Sanderson live in person for the first time ever. The K-Train as well. We were so locked onto this when they had their pod before the NHL got out last season. So I'm excited for that. I'll be putting up stories, lockedon.senators on Instagram. And that kind of leads perfectly in to who are the top 5 Sens prospects outside the organization. Now, that's a really big caveat for a team that signed so many players from recent draft class. If you look at the 2020 draft class, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them have played in Belleville already. Like that's full draft class for more guys. And that's not counting Tim Stützle, who couldn't even point out Belleville on a map, but he's already a regular in the NHL. So you look at what they've brought into the organization. It's incredible. So a lot of these guys are more so college players, although we do have 2 CHLers on this list. And without further ado, let's get to that, because I also want to spend a little bit of time on our top 10 overall Sens prospects that have changed a little bit thanks to the dominant performance of a defenseman we spoke about with Cheryl Pounder yesterday. But number 1 on our list, or should we go 5 down to 1? Do we do countdown style?
I feel like 1 through 3 is very obvious, and listeners will have or should have the same list. It gets interesting at 4 and 5. So why don't we just start with the top guys?
Jake Sanderson, your thoughts?
The real deal. I mean, what else do you got to say here? Like, I'm so excited to get to watch him, because the thing, and I think I talk about this a lot, the thing I love most about Jake Sanderson is those little plays that he does over and over and over that, you know, maybe it's not a highlight, maybe it doesn't lead to a scoring chance, maybe it doesn't affect the entire game, but when he's able to make these smart, quick decisions in transition and steal the puck off guys' sticks so smoothly, and his skating is so elegant, like, there's no better way to describe Jake Sanderson than just smooth. Like, he's so smooth with everything that he does. So I'm excited to get to watch that for sure. And I mean, he, outside of Thomas Chabot, even though this guy hasn't played a pro game, I think it's pretty fair to say he's the second best, and is at least going to be the second best defenseman in this franchise.
Shout out the Zoobcast, who put out this statement. Ooh, that's a pretty niche podcast name, by the way. But they put out this stat. Right now, Jake Sanderson is on pace to finish with the second best points per game among U20 NCAA defensemen since 2000, in the last 20 years.
Wow.
Right now, the only player who's on pace to have more is Owen Power this year. And he's got the Michigan Globetrotters all around him. Whereas you're looking at Jake Sanderson, 1.36 points per game this year. It's better than Adam Fox. It's better than Quinn Hughes. And it's better than Zach Werenski. So those are some pretty big names who are all eating meal tickets at the NHL level. And I'm looking at his overall in both years combined, 30 points in 33 games, and he's a plus 29, and he only has 8 penalty minutes because this guy defends so well without taking penalties. I think that's almost as impressive. But we knew that going into the draft, that he was so good. Mr. Medals, he's got every part of the game on lock, except was he explosive enough offensively? Well, this guy's using the offensive zone as a merry-go-round these past few games. He's spinning around. Should mention, just named Defenseman of the Week in the NCHC, 6 points in 2 games. Scott Wheeler, take a look at some offensive upside.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, like, everyone's starting to understand how dominant Jake Sanderson is. And I'm so thankful that he really took the time and decided to go back to college, because imagine this is your first taste of NHL action with the Ottawa Senators. Like, I mean, look at guys like Timmy. They know what it's like to hop into a team that's dealing with things that the Ottawa Senators are dealing with, to put it generously. So I think really he made the right decision, and following in the path of Cale Makar, like I think definitely he would tell you that going back for a sophomore season in college is worth it, because also you only get to go to college once in your life, right? Like once you go to the NHL, you're not going back to college. So why not enjoy the college experience, stay at a prominent program like UND, and really boost your stock, and then head into the NHL. So Jake Sanderson, just incredible.
So high above number 2 on this list. It's not even in the same universe. But let's move on to number 2. It's Tyler Boucher from Boston University, the 10th overall pick for the Senators in this past draft. And if you look at the counting stats, you're already, if you weren't on draft night, questioning this pick. You see what Cole Sillinger's doing at the NHL level, but let's just focus on Tyler himself. A guest of this show, which we appreciate. So we're obviously going to pump his tires. But at that same time, 1 goal, 1 assist through 8 games and 32 penalty minutes. I mean, kind of as advertised, but you would like to see a little more offense.
Let's not forget that Brady Tkachuk only scored 8 goals in his college season when he was drafted.
Still had 22 points, though.
Yeah, but there's a lot of the season left, right? So if we're looking at goals and points, and that's how we're judging Tyler Boucher, I don't think we're doing it right here, right? Like, what you want to see is the net puck presence. What you want to see is the physicality. What you want to see is good, at least decent two-way game here, right? Like he's not a guy that you drafted because you need him to be scoring goals for you. There's so much more to his game that the simple box score doesn't really show. So I want to get a better chance to view some Tyler Boucher games. Again, that's another guy I haven't watched a full game of his, so that's something that's going to be on my to-do list for sure. But I think Tyler Boucher, he's going to be a guy that I think maybe 2 or 3 years down the road we get really excited about. For now, I think there's still a lot of development to do. I do still think it was a reach by the Ottawa Senators, but if you're the Sens and you know this is your guy, Brady Tkachuk likes his style of game, DJ Smith likes his style of game, you got to make picks based on your franchise and the principles of why and who you draft. And that's what the Senators did. So, you know what? It may take a little time, but I'm going to respect that for now. Although it is tough. I was a Cole Sillinger guy since day one, and it's tough watching him light it up because he would look great as a second-line center for your Ottawa Senators.
Even though you, and I'm sure many Sens fans, by the way, Brady Tkachuk, 23 assists as a freshman. I said points and meant that. So he had 31 points in 40 games. So Boucher far off of that, despite, you're right, only 8 goals for Brady in that. But with Tyler Boucher, but David St. Louis did the work that Sens fans haven't really been able to do when looking at his play this season. And he came away, obviously, go check it out, Elite Prospects, eprinkside.com, but just a little bit of information from that. He said, quote, knowing Boucher had only put 2 points in 10 games, I expected to watch a struggling player. The NCAA competition is an abrupt step up from the USHL, especially for a player who missed a large part of his draft year due to injuries. It would not have been a surprise for me to see him lagging behind the play, but I came away from my viewings more impressed than concerned. Boucher looks comfortable, and the puck is just not finding him in the right spot. So a little bit of positivity when you're looking at Tyler Boucher's game so far at the NCAA level. I don't think he's done any help in terms of getting him onto the World Junior radar, but there's still a lot of runway for him. And before we move to number 3 on our list, let's tell you a quick word from our friends at BetOnline. BetOnline.ag is the #1 sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network. And because you're a listener of Locked On Senators, you're entitled to a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. With that, you can either fade or follow Pilsey's parlay of the day, which we'll get to right now because you were so close to starting a hot streak, but 1 goal. And if Ryan Dzingel doesn't open the scoring for Arizona, assisted by Alex Galchenyuk, you'd be way up in the money.
Yeah, Ross. That's really too bad. Again, 1 goal off for Pilsey's parlay of the day. I know it was a shootout, so puck line was never an option, but there's a method to what I'm working with. That's all. I'm a process guy, not a results guy, even though in the gambling world, that's probably not the right direction to take. But I'm right back at it. You got to stay in on the action, get off the sidelines. So here's my next parlay. There's only 2 games tonight, and I love these odds. I'm going to officially state that this is one you need to be following. Like, this is not a fade. Do not fade this. This one's going to hit. So, the Vancouver Canucks might, I was about to say they're the most struggling Canadian organization, but I forgot about the Montreal Canadiens. So they're right there with them. The Winnipeg Jets have, other than Stastny and then Brian Little, they have pretty much a fully healthy lineup here. So I think Winnipeg Jets money line at even odds up against the Canucks is a steal. You got to be taking that. So I'm taking that. Then Colorado Avalanche. That's a team that is, they're really finding their stride. They're trying to figure things out here. And the Seattle Kraken just haven't been able to figure things out. So Avs money line at minus 147. I also like that a lot. Like, those are great odds on both these games. Put them together for a parlay. Jets money line, Avs money line. Risk $10. You're going to win $23.61. That, my good people, is Pilsey's parlay of the day. Follow along this one.
Go to get in the action at betonline.ag. Don't sit on the sidelines. Use our promo code LOCKEDON to receive a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. It's BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts. All right, Pilsey, back to our list. Of course, Jake Sanderson, number 1, Tyler Boucher, number 2, and we stick in the world of Tylers. For number 3, we got Tyler Cleven from the Nodak Sens. What makes his progression available to our list here in a top 5?
Well, I mean, he's proved a lot of the haters wrong, right? Like, the initial report was, he's a big, mean defenseman. Ottawa liked him because he's going to Nodak and he's big. And that's it, right? He's not going to go anywhere. He's not going to be able to transition to the pros. Well, Tyler Cleven has proved that he does have some offensive upside. He's not just kind of a goon out there making bad decisions and tossing the puck away and giving it away. Like, he's also had a really good year points-wise this season, much better than last season's projections. Him and Sanderson both are looking to definitely break through from last year's stats. So to have Tyler Cleven be in an upgraded, elevated role than last season, because the D-core is much weaker this year for UND, is just a testament that he's ready to take that next step. And hopefully this year he'll have a much bigger role in Team USA's World Junior team.
Yeah, I hope so, because he only played 2 games there last year. It was almost like a fill-in when they needed a bit of physicality. He certainly brought that, of course. But what I love about his game, and when you talk to Shane Pinto and you talk to Jake Sanderson, these guys saw it already. I'm sure Brad Berry, head coach at Nodak, said the same thing, that there is offense to his game. He's getting second power play reps now with North Dakota, something he said he hasn't played since back in Fargo high school hockey. So he's come a long way, and he's still, what I like is that he's not using this added offense, 3-game current point streak right now, as a way of giving up defensively. Like, he's not cheating to move the needle offensively. He's still closing his gaps perfectly. I think he could still get some, he could still level up when it comes to his first pass out of the zone. But what he brings in his gap control and his physicality is enough that if he can add just a little bit more offense, maybe skating more with the puck, because right now he's got that booming slap shot that he likes to use. And there's just so much to like about the frame, too. A guy who can play left, and he's moved over playing right side this year. This guy's going to be a versatile player for Ottawa. Kind of the career projection that I've said I like for him in Senators gone past is, what about a guy, and maybe you want a little more skill than this, but Eric Gryba, like a guy who you had to know when Eric Gryba was on the ice, or he was going to put you through the floor.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, if you get Tyler Cleven in a bottom pair role in the NHL, I think he can be very effective, and he can be a guy that you can rely upon to shut other lines down. So I definitely think Tyler Cleven, he's done a lot of great work in a short amount of time since he's been drafted, and he's someone that Ross and I, we love his style of hockey. Same with Tyler Boucher. So these are guys that, yeah, maybe they're not lighting it up on the stat sheet, but you need all sorts to fill out your roster. And the Sens need a solid, shut down, tough defenseman to play in that bottom role. Since Boro left, they haven't really had it. And other than the fights, I see Tyler Cleven kind of turning into a Boro, right? Where maybe at the beginning, it's all about the physicality. It's all about being an enforcer and a tough defenseman. But as time goes on and he adapts and changes his game, you could see some offense trickle in here. So I'm excited about Tyler Cleven. And just one more thing before we move on, Ross. How crazy is it that Tyler Cleven will be going up against Kyler Cleven tonight? That is not a typo. There is a Tyler Cleven and a Kyler Cleven going up head to head in this game. That is just wild.
Oh, just one of the many reasons to be following along tonight when North Dakota plays the University of Minnesota Duluth for the first time since that 5 overtime thriller in the tournament last year. All right, let's breeze through 4 and 5 here because we want to get to our overall updated Senators top 10 prospect chart and a couple listener questions that we've got in at Send Central. We won't be able to get to them all, but we appreciate everybody for writing in. We'll get to as many as we can. But number 4 on the top Senators prospects who have never played a game yet in the organization, it's Levi Marilainen with the Kingston Frontenacs. A guy who I think would tell you the transition would have been a little easier, but you don't get to pick how easy the transition is, right? He gets to go and play for a great team. And they brought him in because they have Memorial Cup aspirations, not because they wanted to have an amazing November, right? So he's getting comfortable. He's had some great performances, but he's had some performances he would probably like to have back.
Show me one goalie, Ross, that's not named Mad Sogard that is able to come over from Europe to North America and have perfection. Like, it's tough. And I think this is something I talked to Marcus Hogberg about when I got to interview him with the Brampton Beast, transitioning from European hockey to North American. And he said it's a big deal for goalies too, because now it changes how you view the defenseman's role as well, right? Like the ice size is totally different. Shots are coming in from different angles. The way teams break into the zone is very different. So even though I think people overlook the transition for goalies, there is some sentiment there. And let's be honest, what junior goalie really has good stats anyways? Like even the top junior goalies usually are like a 9-10 save percentage. Like in junior, just it's about goals, it's about offense, it's about entertainment, it's about the superstars. So I think it's fine that 13 games his numbers don't look great because he's still getting the wins. Like he's still getting the W's. So they're gonna be just fine. And the way he was able to perform over in Finland, if he can get back to that, he's an incredible goaltender.
He really is. He's got potential oozing out of him, and that's why we have him at number 4 on this list. Remember, he only turned 19 August 13th. And that just explains how much runway, especially as a goalie, that he has. As we move to number 5, Pilsey, a player you like with the Vancouver Giants. We haven't seen much of him this year due to injury. He's certainly impressed in Sen's rookie camp, even got a game in the preseason for Ottawa. It's Zach Ostapchuk, the second-round pick from this past draft.
Yeah, and this is a guy that I think probably maybe Carson Latimer, but he was one of the only picks that the Sens made that other prospect analysts, scouts, reporters, etc., they actually liked this pick, and they said there's a lot of upside here. He's a guy that can play with some good size, some speed. He can rush down the wing. He can drive to the net. So I think Zach Ostapchuk, sure, maybe this year it hasn't looked great, but this is a Vancouver Giants team that has some big names here, like Justin Sourdif. Who are we talking about today? Fabian Lysell. So, like, they've got some offensive reinforcements here that I think now that Ostapchuk is healthy, he can try to get some chemistry with, and we could see some real big improvements here.
I hope so, because he's only got the 1 goal right now through 8 games. 2 assists on that. He's a plus player on a team that's very good in Vancouver, and they need to just get him back healthy. That's the big thing for me with Ostapchuk. But if you're looking at what we saw in his time during rookie camp, he's a player who brings a power element to his game. Yeah. And that power element is something that's going to have to improve as he matures. An 18-year-old kid who's already 6'3", he's got the frame, but under 200 pounds. If this guy can get up to 210, 215, he can dominate physically down low. And that's when his playmaking ability will really shine, because sometimes I think that he overthinks things in the neutral zone especially, and he just needs to be more of a straight line player. And the more that he can gain confidence in what he can bring down low, maybe we'll see a little more of the cycle game grow for him. But right now he seems like more of a rush type player. And for his skill set, he needs to add another element. But certainly a solid start when he comes into camp and earns himself an entry-level contract. I don't think that was certain in the cards until Ottawa saw him on the ice. And let's see what he can do. Again, it's hard to judge a guy who's been injured for the last little while, but Ostapchuk certainly had turned heads during his 2 weeks in Ottawa. So that's our top 5 right now of Senators prospects outside the organization. Number 5, Zach Ostapchuk. Number 4, Levi Merilainen. Number 3, Tyler Cleven. Number 2, Tyler Boucher. And number 1, drum roll, Jake Sanderson. All right, Pilsey, before we get to our Senators prospect updated chart, we've got our graph coming up on YouTube. Again, we're free and available wherever you get your podcast. But if you watch on YouTube, you can see these pretty little graphics that I make, like the one of the Senators' top 10 prospects. We're using the same filter we did on our top 10 prospects when we did that in the summer. You can always go back and watch that one of our most popular YouTube videos so far, where we go through our top 10 Sens prospects. Then we're going to get to a couple listener questions. But first, a word from our friends at Built Bar, the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar. If you're into fitness, you already know about Built Bar because it's a protein bar that tastes like a candy bar. Comes in 16 amazing flavors. We recommend getting the mix box of Built Bars. You can get that on built.com. Just check it out. It's so easy to navigate their website. It's too easy. And they're soft and easy to chew bars. They're 100% covered in chocolate. And because of the variety, each one is packed with so much flavor, but each day you can mix it up. Built Bar is great for the health-conscious guy or girl because you can lose or maintain weight while indulging in a delicious treat. The bars are low in calorie, low in sugar, but they're high in protein and high in fiber. Built Bars are the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar. You can go to built.com right now and use promo code LOCKED15 and you'll get 15% off your next order. Built.com. Promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off your next order. It's Built Bar, the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar. All right, Pilsey. So those were the prospects outside the organization, but let's change the filter. Let's do Sens prospects who have played less than 25 NHL games. We're pulling up the graphic right now, and the only 3 out of our top 5 make it to this top 10 from our last list. But just to go through it quickly, and we don't have to get too deep into it, we'll just tell people to head on over and watch the extended. We did an hour on the Sens top 10 prospect list earlier this offseason. But do you want to run through here the top 5 and why you have them placed where they are?
Yeah, so I mean, Jake Sanderson at the top needs no explanation.
He's top 5 prospect in the entire National Hockey League.
Yeah, exactly. So we can just move right on. Shane Pinto, I mean, this guy's already anointed as a second-line center for your Ottawa Senators. And he's only played 17 NHL games, and in those games, the Senators tend to win more than they lose. So I don't care what advanced stats you like looking at. That's a stat that is going to do well for me.
12 out of 17, Pilsey. Not bad.
Yeah, that's good. Philip Gustafsson. He is arguably the best goalie in the entire organization right now.
Who's arguing with you?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. Need to say more.
Undisputed.
That's yeah. Then Jacob Bernard Docker. I mean, this is a guy that we have high hopes for. He's played in big games. He knows what it takes. He knows how to conduct himself and play a quiet, smart game. And he's got a little taste of the NHL now, and we're hoping he dominates down in Belleville now that he's back there.
And you look at from a quiet game of JBD to the loud game of Ridley Gregg. Hey, when you and I got to see him in Winnipeg during that preseason game, you see the moves. You see those moves, and then he goes backhand upstairs on Eric Comrie, who ends up being an NHL goalie. We were kind of having some fun at his expense, saying that, he's been trying for so long. But Ridley Gregg, man, this guy just comes in loud, banging the door down anywhere he plays.
Not only doors, Ross, he'll bang your face through if it gets in his way.
He's still working on that part of the game.
You can ask Pierre-Luc Dubois what he thinks about that. But yeah, that's Ridley Gregg at number 5. And do we keep rolling along to number 6, or how deep do you want to go here?
Yeah. Let's just, because some people are just listening, right? So number 6, we've got Lassie Thompson, a guy who I had we had as an honorable mention in our last time doing this. But wow, is he really impressed this season?
Absolutely. And I mean, DJ Smith would tell you that himself. The proof is in the pudding that he was the only player that did not get sent back down. So they're saying, look, we don't need you in Belleville right now. We need you in Ottawa. We need someone with your skill set. Let's see what you can do at an NHL level. We've liked what we've seen in a small sample size. We like what we've seen with you paired up with Thomas Chabot. So we're going to give you an extended look here, and he has earned that extended look.
And then it's number 7, Tyler Boucher. We just spoke about him. Number 8, Igor Sokolov. We love seeing him get an opportunity in the NHL. He's got 4 games now under his belt. Number 9, Roby Jarventian. Wow, what a way to enter North American hockey. You talk about the transition it takes for goalies. Yeah, sure, it's more. But Jarventi has 10 points in 16 games in North America with the Belleville Senators. And really outside of that very poor World Juniors where he had no points in 6 games, he has been a stud since being drafted. 14 goals in the top league in Finland right away. 25 points. Like, he put up some great numbers, and he deserves to be on this list.
Yeah, and if Belleville didn't have the injury trouble that they do, I bet he would be lighting up even more this season, right? Like, he's just kind of been the lone guy stuck down there. Luckily, they hadn't played all week, so they hadn't had to deal with any COVID problems. But yeah, he needs to be surrounded by some better talent because he's a guy that gets to the slot and gets the puck off his stick quick. And usually the goalies can't match his release and his accuracy. So I want to see Roby Jarventi here with a nice opportunity to get some passes in the slot. And then we can see what he really does well.
And then to finish off the list, Tyler Cleven is number 10. Some honorable mentions: Matt Sogard, the Great Dane, Levi Merilainen, and don't sleep on Angus Crookshank, who is going to come back with a vengeance following a distraughful injury. Just sucks to see that he missed, it's going to be like 6 months from when he got hurt at the rookie tournament against the guy who hurt him. Just got absolutely pumped by Ryan Reeves the other night.
It all comes through in the wash, Ross. It all comes through.
No question. So that's our top 10 Senators prospects right there. If you want to argue with the list, I'm going to put it out on Twitter at Sen Central and let us know just how wrong we are and how right you are. And that's another way that we get to interact with listeners of the show. Another way is through mailbags, like the one we're about to finish off the week with. Yes, we certainly do. And let's start with Alex Lawler at Alex_Lawler_2. Who should Lassie Thompson play with when the Sens defense is all healthy?
This is a great question because there's a couple ways to attack this. I already mentioned I thought he looked great with Shabbat, but man, do you really want to have him playing those hard minutes up against the other team's top lines consistently? I'm not quite so sure he's ready for that, but when you got a guy like Tom Shabbat beside you, it definitely makes things easier. But then you start looking, I'm not really too stoked about the other partners he could have on the left side, right, Ross? So, like, if you're talking about setting up a guy to succeed, that almost seems like the best option for me. So, if we're talking about a short sample size and kind of a more of a show me style approach here, I'm keeping Lassie Thompson with Thomas Shabbat.
Whoa! All right, so you just
Thomas
want
and
to play
Thompson.
top minutes. All right, the
Tom
Thomas Thompson. Line. Yeah, I
There's
don't like that. Get your Tom Toms out to cheer these guys on. Hey,
yeah, there it is. Yeah.
No, probably not. But I mean, ultimately, you love Artem Zub there, but it's just not
you can't
a way
do it
to have success. You want it so bad, but when Jake Sanderson
one day you could have it, but the other 4 defensemen need some help now.
Everyone will just suffer. So I'll take it a little bit differently. I'll say that it would be nice to have him with. I can't go anywhere else but Shabbat.
That's what I mean. You start thinking about other things, and you're like, nope.
Like, I don't want him playing with Del Zotto. I don't want him playing with Mete.
Holden, maybe? But then you don't want Holden up in an elevated role too much. Like, you want to keep him on that third pair.
Exactly. I mean, what you could say about Lassie is that he's been a penalty killer for Ottawa. So he is getting minutes outside of 5-on-5. So maybe you can do something where Holden, Lassie's your last pair. But I don't know. It's not really working for me just in my brain here. So I'm with you, man. Just keep him with Shabbat. They've been working well together. And that Calgary game, that's a burn the tape game. Like, don't even look at that. Just get out of here. You know, third game in 4 nights, 15 guys out of lineup, complete gong show. So I'm going to stick with you there and say he should stay with Thomas Shabbat. All right, Tim Whalen, Sens Central Citizen. This is a very interesting topic. If the Sens can't extend Nick Paul, do you trade him at the deadline, Pilsey?
Absolutely not. I mean, if Pierre Dorion even considered trading Nick Paul, I think we'd see DJ Smith activate into his old enforcer NHL days, and he'd bust the door down and say, if Nick Paul's gone, I'm gone too. Like, I honestly think DJ Smith would fight tooth and nail to keep Nick Paul. So I was going to say you would pay his salary, but maybe not. You got to keep a guy like Nick Paul around, right? Like Nick Paul is one of those guys where, and I can see it now, Ross, 2025, that your Ottawa Senators are in the Stanley Cup Finals, and all the broadcasters are talking about how strong Nick Paul is as a third line guy, and that he's going to be a reason that the Ottawa Senators beat the Arizona Coyotes in the Stanley Cup Final in 2025, because you need guys like Nick Paul to be able to go up and down the lineup, to be able to shut down other teams' top lines, to be able to kill penalties, to have a shot like Nick Paul has. And I think you could probably get him at a very... Ross is messing around with the graphics here on YouTube. But you could probably get Nick Paul at a very reasonable price, because I think he wants to stay here as well. So, like, if you trade him, what are you getting back? Maybe a third, maybe like at best, maybe a late second round pick. I don't really know. These are just kind of things I'm tossing in the air here. But I think it's like the DeMello situation, right? Like, he's so much more valuable to your team to keep him because you have a need for that guy than anything you can get in return. Because the Sens, how great would it be to have Dylan DeMello right now playing with Thomas Chabot? It would be amazing. And the third round pick, who was selected with that third round pick? Was it Levy? Yeah, so don't get me wrong. Goalie friend of the show. We just talked about how great Levy's been, but I would love to have Dylan DeMello still. So I think if you traded Nick Paul, you would just be like, okay, now how do we find a Nick Paul?
Exactly. So I'm glad you put it like that, because he's so versatile. Yep. He can play up and down lineup. He can play left, right, center. Anywhere you need him, he's a foot soldier. And those are the type of players that help with the identity of the team. So unless a team comes and blows the wall down, like if someone offers you a first round pick for Nick Paul, you have to take it. Yeah. Don't you? A first round pick.
You have, but it would be a late first round pick. But still, you would have to
first round pick.
Yeah, but the question remains, Ross. Okay, we got a first round pick. Now let's find a Nick Paul.
Right.
Like, honestly, I would even be in the situation where if trade deadline comes, they haven't made an extension, don't trade him. Keep him and try to extend him in the offseason. That's how important it is to me.
Pilsey, he's got 3 goals and no assists in 15 games, and he's a -10. Now, I'm not saying that he doesn't have value to Ottawa, but if someone's offering you a first-round pick, you have to take it.
Ross, he's not a centerman. He's been playing center. He's not a second-line player. He's been playing second-line center. He's on the 31st out of 32 teams in the league. Give the guy a break.
I'm giving him a break, but I'm just explaining like how much I value a first round pick. But anything less than that, no, I agree that he helps the identity of this team and they need him. All right, one last one. Get us in the weekend before I head down to North Dakota. Again, follow us on Twitter at Send Central, Instagram Locked On Senators. I'm going to be very active on that throughout the weekend. I'm so happy that everyone gets to see the games tonight.
Yes. Ross, you better be acting crazy in the stands. We gotta get a quick cameo.
What I can do is show you where I'm sitting, right there. Boom.
Love
right
it.
At the Ralph, right behind the Nodak bench. So I'm assuming that because the press is there, the camera goes from that side. So I don't think you'll see me on the broadcast, but I'll be there live and in person. All right, final one here. And can you say the name on this one today, Pilsey?
It's S-Bond Sens, right?
SB on Sens writes in, if the Senators got one do-over from last season or this offseason, what would they do?
One do-over from last season or this offseason? I mean, this is one I'd like to think of a little bit more, but if I'm going with gut reaction, I'll say it again, Cole Sillinger would look great in an Ottawa Senators uniform right about now. So that's what I'm going to go with. I want to preface with saying, love Tyler Boucher. I think when he's ready, he's going to be a great fit for this team. But right now, they need all the help they can get, and they could have got Cole Sillinger.
For me, it's a bit more difficult because these guys didn't end up getting traded. But the names that were out there for a centerman, like Ryan Strome and like Nazem Kadri, I think that it would have been very important for a team that thought they were going to be competitive. And we've seen now it's not going to happen. But this team could have used some extra depth down the middle. And then Nick Paul, who we just talked about, wouldn't have had to be that centerman. And now you're in a situation where you're just a year away. Now, is a high draft pick the worst thing? No. But I would have liked to have gotten one of those centers last year and maybe taken some of the money that you gave Michael Del Zotto and put that towards said centerman. So that's where I'm at, but the draft is certainly a reasonable answer, Pilsey. All right, we got a roll here. Weekend is upon us. Hope everyone had a great week as well as you can without Sens hockey. But next
we
time,
didn't have any Sens losses to get sad about.
Hey, there you go. And next time we have a show, it will be an Ottawa Senators game day. So have a great weekend, everyone. Thanks so much for listening. This has been for Brandon Pillar. I'm Ross Levitan. This has been the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.